Welcome, everybody, to our Douglas County Homeless Initiative for Thursday, June 12th, 2025. I can't believe it's already June 12th. I feel like it was March yesterday. This year has just flown by. But today we're going to have a pretty exciting presentation. One thing I really appreciate is the great work of communications. We're going to have a communications update from Caroline Frizzell, as well as the director of our community foundation, Kirsten Swanson. So excited to hear a little bit more about that. Legal update from Jeff Garcia. Jeff, you haven't been busy at all lately, so we had to put you to work. That's just, something new. Keep you busy. Our community service provider, the amazing Aaron White from Mana Resource Center, is going to be presenting a bit today, and we greatly appreciate that. We'll do a little bit of executive committee member updates, and then, of course, our own Dante Young from Hart is going to do a School of Rock follow-up, as well as the text line follow-up. We'll open it up for public comment, and we should be out of here by 10:25, 10:30. Sound good? All right, so with that, let me begin with introduction, starting on my left with our Health Department Director, Mike Hill.
Good morning, Mike Hill, Douglas County Health Department Director.
Good morning, Jason Gray, Town of Castle Rock Mayor.
Awesome. Good morning, Mike McIntosh, Douglas County Sheriff's Office.
Ellie Reynolds, Douglas County EDC.
Mike Paulimas, The Rock, good to be with y'all.
Sasha Larson, Arapahoe Douglas Works.
Good morning, Aaron White with Mana Resource Center.
Good morning, Adam Mormon, Douglas County Sheriff's Office.
Got it.
Jeff Garcia, County Attorney.
This is why I don't work in IT. Caroline Frizzell, Douglas County Communications.
Good morning, Ruby Riches, Douglas County Human Services.
Abe Layden, Commissioner.
Jennifer E.B., Douglas County Staff.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Dante Young, Heart Navigator.
Wonderful. And then do we have any introductions online? Anybody online wanted to introduce themselves?
Good morning.
Hi. Go ahead.
Councilmember Laura Hefta, Town of Parker.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Maria Chano, Douglas County Housing Partnership Executive Director.
Wonderful. Hi, Maria.
Good morning, Kirsten Swanson, Douglas County Community Foundation.
Hi, Kirsten. We'll see you later at the Community Foundation meeting.
Yes.
Anybody else online? Okay, well, thank you all for being here today. We'll kick it off with our communications update. Caroline and Kirsten.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is just kind of a mid-year update on communications related to the homeless initiative. And I think what I'm most excited about for this update is just how closely our team in communications has been working with the Douglas County Community Foundation. And I think looking at kind of a next generation of our communication for this initiative. Kirsten, did you have any opening comments?
Nope, I think you nailed it.
Perfect, thank you. So when we're talking about communication and communication planning, we always like to start with what do we know? What data do we have that can really drive our work? So on the next slide, we just kind of have a look back at where we are in terms of communication, total fundraising. This is since the beginning of the Douglas Has Heart campaign. You all have helped to raise more than $16,000. And so that is a great start, and we're really excited to build on that together with the Douglas County Community Foundation. Overall, on a social media and digital marketing front, we've been kind of continuing a little bit more of the same from 2024, letting people know about these meetings, first of all, from a transparency perspective, but then also having regular posts to drive folks to the Douglas Has Heart page to donate. And I think that's helping drive that fundraising total. But with the Community Foundation, we're really looking to elevate this in a new way with the remainder of 2025 and into 2026. So you'll see we've had 5 Nextdoor posts, 16 posts to our other platforms, and you can see the impressions there. We get a really good response on Nextdoor, and we know that those folks are in Douglas County. So we know that we're reaching the people who live here and really do care about this program. And then the email marketing, you can see we typically do the emails for these meetings. And I want to highlight the open rate for both of these. The average open rate for a government email is right around 35.6%. And so you'll see that we're above that, which we're really proud of. And I think that's something this whole group can be proud of. People are really interested in the work that you are doing. And on the next slide, we can both kind of talk a little bit about what's next. You know, we've kind of been continuing our efforts from 2024, but what's the new frontier for communication? And how can we work together both with the foundation and also with Ellie and the EDC? So this group has talked quite a bit about goals around business engagement. So that is also a communication goal to try to increase the number of businesses that we engage with, both from the heart perspective, but also to try to drive some fundraising. Kirsten, do you want to talk about the fundraising goals?
Absolutely. So I know when I kind of came to the plate late last year, I believe I had mentioned to this group that we had given out, I think, one check the previous year, or maybe it was two, and it was my goal to double that. So we did give a check out earlier this year, and I'm really excited to report that since our last meeting, we received another $500 donation, and so we will be sending out another check already, and we're only 6 months in. So it is my goal to do another check still before the end of the year. And I believe you have it on the next slide, but we'll talk about a little bit of a kind of end of or second half of the year fundraising strategy that we have coming up with, again, our partnership with the EDC. So I'm so thankful that Ellie is there. But they have been really great in partnering with us. And we have an opportunity at their breakfast to have a donation QR code at all of the centerpieces at their sold out breakfast. And we thought that it would be really fitting that the donations from that event actually go towards the Douglas Has Heart Fund, because of the nature of the relationship with this team, with DCCF, and with the EDC. It's something that we are all working on. And so we felt that that would be the smartest fundraiser to do for us. So we're hoping that we can raise some funds that day as well, and hopefully get a whole nother check out in just a few weeks.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that piece of it, how are we going to implement a lot of this business engagement? It's going to launch pretty much at the breakfast with Ellie. And then our team is working on some postcards and posters that you all saw drafts of at the last meeting. We've downsized one to a postcard size that is a little bit more tangible for businesses to take with them and maybe have them at the point of sale and other places that make sense for them. And then to supplement all of this, we're really taking a hard look at our web pages and doing a website audit to make sure our content is up to date. We're going to add success stories in a really prominent way on the landing page, and we'll expect all of that to be ready, of course, before the breakfast on July 1st. And then additionally, for implementing the second fundraising goal, we're talking about and preparing for a heart fundraiser in February. So again, you'll see we'll really amp up our website again before then. And then kind of a teaser for the November meeting is we're planning to have our draft communication campaign for the February major fundraising effort. So Kirsten, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I just that, again, really thankful to be working with your team, Caroline, and getting a lot of this stuff up and running. And yeah, excited to get you guys those materials in November. We wanted to do it early enough to be able to get some feedback to make changes if we need before we then go and launch at the very end of January, right? We want to run this campaign for the full February term. So really look forward to your guys' feedback in November.
Absolutely. And with that feedback, we'll make sure to bring probably some hard copies of collateral that you all can take with you in January for February. And then, of course, as we think about communications and, did we reach the goals that we set out to achieve? This is how we plan to evaluate. Obviously, we'll know dollar amount, how much did we raise? But really focusing on the QR codes, we can differentiate and find out where do we get the most bang for the buck? Was it from the centerpieces or was it from the postcards? And through those individual QR codes, we can really track what makes the most sense, so we know what to do in the future. And all of these evaluation pieces then feed into the beginning of another communication cycle where we can evaluate where we were and what our next goals are going to be. And of course, when we do that, we'll get feedback from all of you. That is the end of our presentation, but if you have any questions, we're happy to take them.
Wow, well, that's wonderful. And between the folks that are in this room and then the three of you, our community foundation, our communications department, and the Douglas County EDC, I think you guys could pretty much take over the world if you wanted to. That's a lot of horsepower, a lot of muscle, and energy and excitement. So thank you for that. And a tremendous thanks to our Douglas County EDC for featuring the homeless initiative in such a prominent way. I think that's really significant. I know we had a great report about businesses last time, and I don't know, Ellie, if there's anything else you wanted to share about the work in the business community.
Thank you, Commissioner. No, I think we're really excited about the partnership. We want to make sure that we are reaching multiple different businesses where they are. And what we've found is that there's a combination between small business and large business, and how you reach them is very different. The breakfast is going to be all of our board members. And so primary employers, large employers. And so I think this will be a different avenue than some of the engagement that we've been doing with Lunch and Learns for smaller business. So hopefully this is just another layer of helping the DC Douglas County Community Foundation. And then also I would say we will do some follow-up to the people that attend the breakfast as well, and make sure that we're continuing to send it out within, after the breakfast, so that they have the QR code past that point.
That's great. And recently at the Mizell dinner, if anybody's familiar with that, I had the opportunity to meet the representative for all the large big box stores. I mean, he really, and I'm forgetting, you probably know right off the top of your head, Ellie, but really offered to partner with this group and maybe make some additional connections so that we can engage with those stores, both on the Handouts Don't Help campaign, and then this issue that, we know Jeff is working on about people leaving stores with big carts of supplies and goods and things of that nature. So thank you for that. For those that aren't familiar, I know we're all in this room really aware of the February campaign, but again, just as a reminder, this group was talking about, because it's the Heart Team, Valentine's Day and that holiday being a perfect opportunity to really laser focus on fundraising and getting the word out. So super excited about that. You mentioned the QR code. Do we have a QR code yet, or where are we at on QR codes?
Are you talking about the, oh, there we go. You're good.
Nope. I was going to go ahead.
I was gonna say, Abe, are you asking about the QR code for the breakfast or the QR code for the general Handouts Don't Help?
Probably both. I know we had some conversation around, the images that are being put up in the big box stores and some of the posters, if those have QR codes now or not. They do?
They do. Yep.
Wow. Classic Douglas County. You guys already got it done.
Yep. So they'll deploy first at the breakfast.
And they'll be seen at the breakfast. Okay, good job. That's great. Anything else on communications? Yeah, Maria.
So I just wanted to call out the Heart Team for attending the May Douglas County Housing Partnership Board and talking about doing the same presentation that they've done for other business groups. And so our board is comprised of municipal and county members, elected officials, but also people who have businesses out in the community. So it was a great opportunity to reinforce what we've been talking about here, how it is compassionate to call, get someone out there to provide help. And so we had board members that asking questions like, we have folks coming in to use our restrooms and clean up, and we just feel so bad. We don't want to call law enforcement. So perfect opportunity to talk about Heart Team, share those resources, and these folks would like to have materials, handouts, and just really reminding them that this is a compassionate approach. Thank you.
Maria, thank you for that. I would add you to that group of three. Maybe it's a group of 4+, but I know all of your work with the Housing Partnership. What a great connection to the work that Heart is doing. Yeah, Ruby. Oh, yep.
That just made me think of something, that I wonder if we make a smaller size poster or something that's geared towards the employees of these places, that's in their work lunchroom or whatever, so that they know what to do when they're coming in and asking if they can use the restroom or wash up or that kind of stuff. Just that's more geared towards them. Does that make sense?
I feel like every meeting, Ruby Richards has another good idea. That is a great idea. Would anybody be opposed? How hard would that be, Caroline, to just have? Caroline's like, we could do it right now. Well, that's great. I mean, if that is something we could do, that makes a whole lot of sense, especially, I wonder for people in human services that are, doing all this work. You feel like your department's pretty familiar with HEART?
I do feel like our department has a good handle on who to call and where we interact with the teams pretty regularly in our building. But yeah, the employee at Home Depot might not know, and they might see the sign on their front door, but not really pay attention to it, where if it's in their break room, maybe they will.
Yeah, Maria?
So I love that idea also, and I think that it reinforces there's the compassion aspect, but also what's brought up is the way it looks to have a bunch of officers pull up to your place of business or your bank or your store that you're running a small business in. And so the deputies and folks were able to talk about how they're discreet when they show up and they are coming in with code enforcement, but also kindness and resources, and that it's not going to be, sirens rolling up and cornering folks, which is something that if the compassion part isn't what's bothering folks, the perception of what's happening and for their customers seeing, why is law enforcement here? What's going on? That they're able to be discreet. And I think that's just something I want to reinforce.
I think too, Commissioner, I was just going to say, I think maybe this is something, Caroline, we could work on, something that would be like a packet for the business owner and then a packet for the employees, because they're very different. And then we also need to be mindful that the employees should never be getting anything that the business owner has not asked them to distribute. So I think if we could create maybe a 2-packet, and then if they want to distribute that, making sure that you're going through that business owner.
You read my mind. Yeah, we'll work on that. I think hopefully maybe by the next meeting, if not before. And your story actually reminded me, if I may. My son was riding his bike to his job at Baskin-Robbins in Parker. And he spotted a person he thought was experiencing homelessness, and he rode back to the Handouts Don't Help sign and called HEART and had a very wonderful experience. So,
way to go.
Yeah.
Caroline's kids are awesome. If you haven't seen our last video on Zebulon, they were extras in that video. They are really wonderful kids. I think that's such a good point, Maria, because we have seen that, right? And this is Douglas County. This is our big Mayberry. And I remember on the mental health initiative side when we were trying to launch 988, it was that whole concept of 911 is great, and we love law enforcement, but people in Douglas County have neighbors. In Highlands Ranch, when people close that garage door and are taking care of their gardens, they don't necessarily want to see disruptions in their neighborhood. And so 988 is that confidential resource where they can get those mental health supports without some of the other optics of that. And I think that's a really good point, that HEART is branded to be compassionate and engaged with our citizens in a way that I don't think is it's not intimidating. We have law enforcement there, but we've never arrested our way out of homelessness. Our HEART team is truly phenomenal. So great point there. Anything else on the comms? Okay, well, with that, we'll move to Jeff Garcia with our legal update. Jeff?
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And it says legal update up there, but I'm going to be real honest. Our part of this is really small. This is a big collaboration that I'm going to talk about with what's going on with the DA's office, with the sheriff's office. If you want to stop me at any point, Mac, and help me on this, I would appreciate that. We're going to talk a little bit about some initiatives that have been going across the county addressing retail theft and maybe some options going forward. But I'm really a reporter in this more than anything else. So let me share with where we are at the moment. Let's go forward one more slide. So an issue came up to the homeless initiative probably 2-3 months ago, and it was this kind of problem that outside of Douglas County, there is lenience when it comes to retail crime. There is not the enforcement that we have here. It is we enforce, we have laws that we enforce here that aren't necessarily enforced the same way across the metro area, or there's PR bonds getting given out, or there's a slap on the wrist, and that there are policies from our merchants here that are probably national policies that dissuade them from reporting crime or encampments or making those connections with law enforcement. And then from a criminal standpoint, Douglas County has nice stuff. We have nice cars, we have good businesses, we have places that you can take things from, and they're of value. And the concern that came to the group was, well, then is Douglas County a target? Are we a place that people think you can come and steal from? Let's move forward one more. And of course, homelessness isn't a crime, but crime is a crime, and we have to be thoughtful of that. A Lone Tree resident brought this forward to the sheriff and to the commissioners and said, you know, what can we do to curb retail theft? And we brought it here, and there's a good discussion about it. But the discussion here was actually already being discussed by the Sheriff's Department and by our new DA, George Brockler, and they were working on putting together a collaboration, and that collaboration actually has been going on for quite some time. But it's the Sheriff's Department, it's the DA's office, it's we've gotten involved, my office has gotten involved, the municipal law enforcement, the EDC, and then Douglas County businesses, because it's not an answer for one group, but for a whole bunch of people getting together. On the 9th, there was a retail theft summit. George Brockler was there, Sheriff Weekly was there, the chiefs from Lone Tree and Castle Rock were there. There were merchants there, Target, Lowe's, Nike, Sunglass Hut, and then I had staff there as well. Let's move forward one more. And I'm going to do these kind of reverse. So the problem that came about, and looking at those initial kind of circles, was the law enforcement for petty theft outside of Douglas County doesn't necessarily look like the law enforcement for petty theft inside Douglas County. We have a stronger emphasis on law enforcement here than there may be across other parts of the metro area, and our prosecution's different. The new DA, George Brockler, was very clear about that he wants to prosecute petty theft because there's a link. So when someone might be shoplifting, they might have a gun in the car, or might be shoplifting to buy drugs, or that car that they're in is stolen. And it's one crime leads to another, and it's unfortunately bringing a criminal element into the county. And then there's a talk about the policies, what those policies mean. And when they had some folks who were from loss prevention there, they said, you know what, we have a national policy, and it's confusing. I don't even understand what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. Are we supposed to talk to people on the side of the store? Are we supposed to wait till they leave the store? Can we call the Sheriff's Department before they leave the store and we're just curious or we're concerned? And the big underlying word that they kept saying was liability. Well, we don't want to get sued because we're profiling, or we don't want to get sued or by an employee because they got hurt trying to talk to somebody, or someone punched them, or they ran away and shoved them down. And so there are clearly some problems that need to be addressed, but those are problems that group that got together can talk about and work through. Cooperation to create a safer judicial district was what the DA's emphasis was. Changing expectations so that people know when they come down here, if you're going to commit these kind of crimes, it is going to be prosecuted. A change in corporate policies, encouraging reporting, linking crimes. So the crime of shoplifting or the crime of being a nuisance somewhere can be looked at, and they might roll through the parking lot and find out that there's a car with no plates on it, and that car's stolen, and there's other stolen merchandise in that. So it's one crime can lead to another, and it can really take a negative element out of the community. And don't wait. So one of the things that was discussed at the Wage Theft Summit was that these box stores or these retailers will wait until they have 5 or 10 complaints to report them. So they won't report them each and every time and said, oh, we'll do it on a Friday. We'll do it next Friday. We'll do it every 2 weeks. And it really makes it more of a documentation situation than a true enforcement. And then sharing information about Colorado's Organized Retail Crime Alliance. Let's go one more. So again, everybody's working on this together. The DA and law enforcement have offered letters to the corporate offices explaining the situation in Douglas County, explaining that enforcement is different down here, and that is an encouragement of reporting, and that they don't need to do it just for an insurance reason or a documentation reason, but to really stop people from abusing their businesses. There is the idea that this one-time summit isn't going to be the end of this, but instead it's going to be cooperation and collaboration from the business community and law enforcement and the county, and making reporting a lot easier. So they were talking about online reporting and shifting the liability, that concern that, oh no, we're going to be profiling someone because we thought they were doing something, or they came in with reusable bags and those bags went out looking a lot heavier than they did when they walked in. That being said, law enforcement's okay with stopping someone. Law enforcement's able to do criminal enforcement, and that's the job of it. And so if there's a concern from a person who's doing a business and is running a merchant, they can shift that concern, and that there is a response, and it's a timely response. And then however we can, as we talked about just 5 minutes ago, how the EDC can better educate and work with the businesses here. And that's really the carrot. But the question that came from the residents of Lone Tree is, okay, what's the stick? What can we do? And there's conversations, and we've looked at the legality of making reporting of a crime a requirement. And if we find out that businesses aren't reporting a crime, that they could be fined. We're not at that point yet. We still want to be cooperative and collaborative. But if we find that a place is being a nuisance, or it's really encouraging a criminal element, that is something that we can contemplate and talk about more in the future. I don't know where I'm at with that. I think that might be the end of it. I think that's the end of my slides. Mike, would you like to add anything from the sheriff's side?
Well, Jeff, thank you so much.
Come on, you got the uniform on.
Mike, anything? Nothing? Well, I think that's a great presentation. Any questions for legal on that? Yeah, Mike.
I just have a quick question, because we were repairing our bathroom and had to go to Lowe's, and and we were buying some small machinery, some equipment, and the guy there that was helping us, he's like, well, I can't give this to you, I can't hand this to you until you pay for it, so I have to walk up to the counter, and then once you pay for it, I can hand it to you. And so we started talking. I said, why is that? He goes, well, we're having so many people that are basically just taking things and walking out the door, and there's nothing we can do. And so I guess is there anything, it seems like the employees, their perception is if there's a petty theft and somebody's walking out with something, I mean, right in front of them, they take it and just walk out the door. There's nothing that the employees, their perception is that there's nothing that they can do. So this just came up. I was just the other day as I was at Lowe's in this conversation. So I'm just kind of curious how that, what do they do? What is the stick right now? Is there anything that they can do?
It's a great question, and I hope you got your bathroom fixed. That's important.
I did.
That is important.
That was the main thing. And I tried to get out with it, but they made me pay. So
I think that's a really good comment, because we've been talking about this, and I don't think that's anecdotal, but I think we're hearing a lot of those anecdotes where, I think when people go to the stores now, I was just in Target the other day, and I think like face wash was under lock and key. I mean, it's like, are people stealing that much? But I think they are. I think the loss recovery is pretty significant. And to your point, Jeff, this is a target. I mean, Douglas County is a place where people feel like it's safe, and maybe they can just go into a store and be trusted to shop and then maybe steal something. So I'll just share with you from a commissioner standpoint, I'm very interested in the required reporting ordinance. And to, no surprise here, just roll the dice on that. If we have issues, we'll encounter them. But I'd love to have that on the books and then communicate that to the businesses, just to say, hey, this is the expectation in this county. My perception of the large retail big box stores is they would just comply. They would know that they would integrate this into what they do. I don't think there'd be a whole lot of pushback on that. Ellie, I don't know, do you think that would be problematic for business?
Yeah, I think I'm going to first talk to Mike's kind of point here is that I actually had a meeting with Home Depot's loss prevention folks, and really they're struggling more with criminal activity in the parking lot than they are theft inside, and that it become, there's human trafficking going on and things actually in parking lots. Once again, that's more, maybe more about that, but anecdotally, that's what they said. They were trying to kind of rank the issues that some of these big box is having. And right now, when it comes to theft, it's on the lower end of some of the issues that they're having because they're having so much happen in the parking lot. and it's easier to move it out of the parking lot. They then said, and you can imagine, especially big box stores do not want to put their employees in a situation. And so their employee handbook, we actually talked about this, they go through training in which they tell employees to let them walk. It's not worth it to them to have an employee engage in something like that. And so that's when I think, Caroline, we were just talking about, like, how do you make sure you have resources for the business owner and then resources for the employee, and also being mindful that somewhere in there, they're a private business, and how they choose to operate their business is their business, you know? And so that is one of the challenges you have with employees and theft, is just at what risk. You know, they're not going to go after the person stealing the face wash. So
I think that's a really good point. And I don't think any of us would say, if you're an employee, go out in the parking lot and start fighting with, you know, people and like grabbing things and engaging. But if something is observed, to pick up the phone privately and to be able to call law enforcement. I mean, I would defer to sheriff's office and law enforcement on best practices, but it seems like that would be a nice middle ground. Because to Jeff's point, again, it's, you know, theft is theft. And so regardless of where the business may be at, I think we have a pretty low tolerance philosophy when it comes to criminality in Douglas County. So I don't know if law enforcement had any other thoughts or advice for us on that.
From a law enforcement perspective, the sooner we get the information, the chances of us being able to successfully solve that crime or hold somebody that's responsible for perpetrating that crime accountable, it's exponential, right? We're from that summit, we're going from a place where it may be 2 weeks, you know, before, okay, I've got all of these thefts that have happened, and now the guy that knows how to fill out the online reporting will get on and fill out 10 to 15 thefts that have occurred over 2 weeks. Well, we have no hope at that point of trying to apprehend somebody that's perpetrating these thefts. The larger amount thefts, they have a tendency to call us sooner. But we're seeing their solution now is to lock up as much stuff as I was in Home Depot the other day, wanted to buy a concrete drill bit. Had to get somebody to unlock the case so that I could get the concrete drill bit. And obviously they're doing that because they're having a lot of problems. So I think that this summit goes a long way. And I really just, the cooperation between the district attorney's office, the county attorney's office, the sheriff's office, to start having these conversations with these, especially the bigger stores, the Targets, the Home Depots, the Walmarts, to make sure that we stop the target, not the store, but the target in Douglas County from being victimized, people coming down here because we do have nice stuff. This starts to go a long way towards that. And a lot of it is education. If we can get these businesses together and just say, here's the things that will help us be able to be successful and hopefully drive that criminal activity out of Douglas County, it's critical.
It's a great thought. Anyway, Ruby.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I'm hearing sort of a similar situation that we experience in child protection. We get calls that, you know, someone's at the store and sees something happening, but they can give a very little description of what the people looked like. They, of course, don't know names or addresses or those sorts of things. And I think similarly, if you've got someone who's just walking out with something, your employer is trying to describe what they look like as best as they can remember. And honestly, by the time law enforcement gets there, they're long gone and you have nothing to go on. And so I think it's a combination. Then the employer gets frustrated that, well, yeah, we have our staff calling, but it's not doing any good because they don't have enough information to provide. I think if we can figure out more of a deterrent, right? That Douglas County takes this seriously, that we do call, and eventually, and you've said this, Commissioner Layden, that word will get out that, yeah, this is no longer a place that you're going to get away with stuff like that. So if we can create some type of a campaign, I think, that sends that message, we're probably going to have more success than every employee calling every time someone's trying to walk out. You all are just going to get flooded with calls that you really can't do anything about.
And I think too, businesses, I don't necessarily know if the employee would take it upon themselves to make the call, especially during their shift or something. And so I think that's, to your point, Mike, is that you go ahead and you get a backlog because they've probably reported it to their manager. Their manager has then tried to figure out a time in which they can backlog these complaints. So maybe that's something we could just figure out in our communication of employees, like immediate action, reporting it right away and reporting it to your manager or calling in the line. And then if there is the stick, it's the idea is, right, they're doing it with some speed.
I think one of the other things that came up in the summit was them not retaining video. So they have they clear the video pretty frequently. So if you're reporting 2 weeks later, all the video and the evidence of the crime is gone. So I think there are elements that we could talk about in a ordinance about the timeliness of reporting, retaining evidence, other elements of things where it's not shifting or where it's not affecting the liability or endangering our employee that we could really hit on early in this and then get that campaign out and then talk about maybe even more firm approach or even amending that ordinance down the road to keep leveling up that cooperation and requirement.
That's a good, you read my mind. I was thinking it's 2025. We're not talking about the 1950s and somebody running out of a mom and pop. I mean, at Home Depot, I would think they have pretty good camera footage. I didn't realize that they were dumping that every I can't imagine that would be otherwise. Daily? So if something is reported after 24 hours, I mean, that seems like a really rough policy to just lose all that information on a daily basis. But okay, well, more to come. Any other additional input on this one? Good discussion, Mike.
Sorry, just one more quick one.
Yeah.
Regarding that stick, what is the penalty for petty theft? Because at the end of the day, if the penalty isn't strong enough, it's not going to change. Even if you're reporting and doing everything, it's great. You're going to get all the numbers, but the thing that's going to stop it is the actual, like, the stick, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if we even have any ability to control that or.
Jeff, is there a mechanism by which the county might be able to increase some criminal enforcement around this?
And let me just say this, even like if they just had hours of community service, like here's, 500 hours of community service. I mean, I know that's, but something that's like, oh my goodness, you may not have to pay $1, but now you're going to serve your community for doing this. And all of a sudden now we have a lot more people serving the community until they figure it out. So anyway.
Yeah, law enforcement, what I always hear from my friends in law enforcement is the bad guys talk, and so if they know that this is, and I love that idea of the comms campaign where it's not only the ordinance, but it is really launching a pretty large and significant community-wide communications outreach to say, look, this is not a place where you can do that because you will be caught and there will be consequences. But I don't know, Jeff, any thoughts on this?
Stockton to Malone with a layup over here. Yes, sir, there is actually something that's being discussed right this moment that would permit us to have our own laws that are distinct from the state. There's something called home rule that's being discussed right now, and it would permit us to have a unique law that would allow, I believe, and I'm going off the top of my head here, up to 6 months in jail and up to a $2,000 fine under the laws that you could create under there. So that would be something to start with. And I know that we have discussed that with the DA's office and the sheriff's office, and there is a real interest in that in the community that it would still be, we can't create a felony. It would still be a misdemeanor. It'd be unique. We have community service. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could come out of it with. But yeah, there is a mechanism that exists out there. And the commissioner was joking about that I've been busy lately, and I haven't. I've been talking everywhere I can about home rule because there's a lot of discussion about it. But one of the really interesting things I always talk about is I ask people, what do you think is important and unique about Douglas County that you'd want to preserve? And this group came up several times. So they're like, is there any way we could make sure that the homeless initiative is always here? And I was like, well, sure. Yeah. How would you like us to do that? And they're like, could you put that in the charter? And I was like, that seems like something that you could put in the charter. So, because let's say down the road, Commissioner Lane's gone and you have a different group of commissioners and it's not as pressing a need, but it was in the charter, it would still need to be here. It still need to exist. And so that would be a nice way to cement the hard work of this organization going forward. So that being said.
That was actually where I connected with Home Depot, was because they were upset that the state had just recently upped the level in which you can charge for a petty offense. And that was one of their concerns, was that the state has year over year continued to increase the amount in which you can charge. And so it went from 200 to 400 this last year, $400. And so, yeah, to your point, of course, they're locking up the concrete bits because it's not $400, right? And so that was actually exactly where our conversation came from, is what the state is doing and that it's encouraging criminal activity.
Absolutely. And in California, the folks from Lone Tree who came and spoke to us, they're upset because in California, it is a class 1 misdemeanor to steal anything up to $999, which is no time. There's 0 time, and it would only be a fine. And if you're stealing $1,000 and you're getting fined $200, well, shoot, I can do the math on that.
Yeah, it's funny. At 9 News, Marshall Zellinger interviewed me yesterday, and he was so confused. He was like, well, I don't understand this whole home rule thing when, you guys have already done so many great things supposedly in Douglas County all these years. Why do you need home rule? Like, well, this is, in my 7 years as commissioner, the fights with the state we have had to take on to get these good things done, whether it's our judicial district or our health department or, all of the COVID stuff. I mean, it has really been quite a battle. So I think home rule might be able to integrate some of these public safety issues. And George would be so pleased we're talking about this right now. Somebody tell George we talked about home rule here. Okay, good. Any other questions on legal? All right, with that, let's move to our community service provider, Mana Resource Center, Aaron White. Aaron.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you guys for letting me have a few minutes to talk about Mana Resource Center and the work that we do. I'll start with the next slide in our mission. Mana Resource Center, we really exist to extend the love of Jesus by walking alongside our neighbors. And transformation and empowerment are our goals, and we do that through holistic programs, community, and collaborative partnerships. But what does that mean? So let me explain some of our services that we provide. On the next slide, please, Jen. Thank you. Our bread and butter, our primary service is resource navigation and coaching. Last year, we were able to connect with 762 community members and community partners that reached out to Mana Resource Center looking for support. For individuals and families that are interested in getting more than resources and want to really have a coach walk alongside them, we provide one-on-one professional coaching to identify those goals and really break down barriers to accomplishing goals. And that's really what our coaches do, is work to break down barriers. Our coaches spent 1,600 hours coaching people engaged with Mana Resource Center last year. So a lot of time working with the neighbors that we get to serve. We also provide wellness services. We have a staff clinician that provides individual and family therapy services, not only to Mana Resource Center clients engaged in coaching, but also to people from the community that would like to come to work with us on their mental health. Something that is maybe a little bit unique about Mana Resource Center is our focus on community and community engagement. We really seek to reduce the social isolation that many of us experience by helping people find connection and growth. So twice a month we get together. We were together just this last Tuesday night at our parent cafe that happens on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday nights of the month. It's just a safe space for parents and caregivers to come together and to talk about topics around the protective factors that make families strong. We also have our empowerment cohort that operates twice a year that helps people that are engaged in coaching to really work on getting to know themselves better. So we have topics around different life skills, things like having a growth mindset, for example, or how to understand when we have automatic negative thoughts about ourselves and how we can shift those thoughts. And that space is a really great place to not only learn, but grow together. Last year, there were over 1,250 hours spent in community by the clients that Manor Resource Center serves. And during that community time, we provide therapeutic childcare, and there were over 800 hours of therapeutic childcare provided to kiddos of the families that we're connected with. And then the last component is education. We have a variety of evidence-based and research-informed education opportunities that we offer throughout the year on topics like parenting, personal finance, and career readiness, really helping to dig deeper into some of the topics that we touch on in coaching, but can allow through that evidence-based platform for people to really learn more about some of those barriers that they have. So let me talk a little bit about numbers, because statistics are things that I think we all think are important. In the last 12 months, we've had 30 folks graduate from the Manor Resource Center. During their time with us, they accomplished 297 goals, and there were 1,402 outcomes achieved towards those goals. Let me explain what that means. A goal for someone working with a coach at Manor Resource Center could be to gain employment. But we all know, and those of us that have ever gotten a job, that you don't just one day miraculously get a job. There's multiple steps that it takes to get that job, whether it be connecting with AD Works to help learn how to make a resume or how to polish up your interview skills. That goal would be finding a job, but those outcomes would be connecting with AD Works, going to workshops, achieving that new resume, learning how to have better interview skills. And so that's the work that goes into goals and outcomes. We like to be able to measure the success and the transformation that our clients are achieving through evidence-based tools. Since 2019, we've been using the Colorado Family Support Assessment, which is an evidence-based self-sufficiency assessment used by the Family Resource Centers across the state. We conduct that assessment when we first engage with folks, and then at least every 90 days of engagement with us. And these graduates increased their scores on the CFSA by 23%. They also significantly increased their income, over 248%. And without any benefits, just straight, these are your gross wages, those 30 graduates earned $1.45 million. So remarkable achievements that our graduates were able to accomplish. But if you know me at all, numbers are important, but stories are even better. So I'm going to close out with a couple of stories. One of the folks that we were blessed to work with over the last year was a single woman. She was age 54 when she came to us, and she had lost her job of 20 years. In looking for a new job, she depleted her entire savings and was facing eviction and bankruptcy. She began working with her coach at Manor Resource Center to create a plan, but her physical barriers and honestly, in her opinion, her age, made getting a new job more difficult. She connected with Arapahoe Douglas Works, a legal clinic to discuss bankruptcy, and credit counseling to see what it would take to increase her credit score and maybe avoid that bankruptcy. When she could no longer stay in her apartment because her savings were gone, she moved into a hotel funded in part by Manor Resource Center, in part by her tax return, and also through community partners. Her coach helped her secure various temporary jobs as a gateway to gaining some income, and as she tried to find permanent employment. Transportation was a barrier, so she also received a donated car through our partnership with Christian Brothers Automotive, which greatly increased her ability to look in a broader area for work. Eventually, she was able to move into transitional housing through our partnership with Douglas County Cares. This opportunity allowed her time to secure that long-term permanent job with full benefits. In the community program that I just talked about, she was able to gain confidence to continue to pursue employment. She applied for over 100 jobs, and in many of those jobs was able to get past the first interview, but not get to that second interview. And so that took a big toll on her mental health and her confidence. While she was in transitional housing, she was able to pay off her previous debts, so that she was able to then move into senior affordable housing through a connection with the housing partnership. While working with Manna Resource Center, she increased her self-sufficiency on that self-sufficiency score assessment by 55% and accomplished 80% of the goals that she set out. Another family was a single father of 3 who also had an adult son, and he had significant challenges. The adult son had significant challenges. He was referred by our friends at Heart because he'd been living in his motorhome for several months after his lease became unmanageable. Through working with his coach, he was able to restructure his small business and double his income. We helped him connect with affordable housing in our community. And he also engaged in the community program where he developed a great friendship with the folks that were at his table that continues today. He accomplished 86% of his goals, but one of the things that is unique about him is as he started going through the program with us and working with his coach, his adult daughter, who was out of the household and living on her own, experienced some barriers of her own, and so he referred her to our program as well. Her challenges were different, but she also was able to increase her income through finding sustainable employment and accomplished 83% of her goals. And they graduated together at the end of the time with us. So I'll close with this. In 2025, we've served 6 families that are living in transitional housing, and we've placed 3 families in our partnership with the Goals program. Let me tell you about them. There's a single mom with 3 children who'd been engaged in a long-term custody battle, but has now finally gained some stability for her family. It's a young adult who was living in their car while navigating college and working part-time. A man who was in a sober living home, but has now been able to take the next step towards stable housing. A single mom of 2 who spent the last year doubling up in somebody else's house. A 60-year-old woman who was living in her car after fleeing domestic violence. A single mom of 2 who spent nights alternating between sleeping in her car and staying at the hotel where she worked part-time. A 2-parent household with 3 kids who was couch surfing in a studio apartment with 9 people. A mom whose kiddos were removed from her custody, but now her increased stability has led towards reunification with her kids. A single mom who was working part-time, making just enough money to pay for the hotel for her and her 6-year-old daughter to stay. These are our neighbors, families in our community that have significant barriers towards self-reliance or self-sufficiency. And they're the faces of our program, and we're really honored to be able to walk alongside them. And I think they're the faces of what we're trying to do here. So I wanted to share a little bit about them with you guys. And with that, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
How about a huge round of applause for Erin? That's wonderful. And if you have not had the opportunity to go to a graduation for Manna, it is pretty darn amazing. I think one of my many favorite things about Erin is that she sees people. And I think it's you offer the dignity of getting to know somebody and elevating them out of their experience. They are not just a number to you or to Cherry Hills or to Manna, and we really appreciate that. Any questions for Erin?
No questions, but just a comment. From Human Services perspective, honestly, I don't know what we would do without Manna Resource Center. So we're just so lucky and honored to partner with them. But I think in the stories that Erin shared, it's a really perfect example of how it really takes that community, that relationship, that time spent with folks. Just the story of the 54-year-old woman, 100 applications and making it to the first interview. No wonder your confidence starts to crash, right? But if you've got those people around you and encouraging you and you can do this, that's what it takes. And so many of our folks don't have that. And then they end up homeless because they just give up on themselves, honestly, because it becomes too much. So it's an incredible program. We try in every opportunity at Human Services to push the resources towards the community so that eventually all of our partners, the school, law enforcement, everybody knows, don't call Human Services unless there's a true child protection, child in danger situation. But if this family just needs help, here's the things in our community that will be there and can help them forever.
Such a great point. Any other questions for Erin?
I also just have some comments. I don't have a question for you, but I do want to say I have been to a couple of MANA graduations, and I encourage everybody, if you have an opportunity to go, you should. It's incredibly inspiring to see the work that those individuals do. It's also inspiring to see the program that MANA Resources has put together and provides as far as that kind of supportive, just all that support, all those pieces that are important that, you know, most of us get on throughout our lives, but not everybody has the opportunity to get all of that education and support. And it makes a tremendous difference for people. And I think just their well-being in general, to be able to, you know, have a safe place where they can share things and really have people who have been there with them, who understand what they're going through. What a tremendous difference that makes for people. So I just want to commend you. And I also want to say that every time our department in community services, and I know multiple departments across the county have had a need or had a idea for a partnership or something that needs to be done, you know, our partners always step up, and Erin White has been a wonderful resource for us. And I just want to commend you and the program that you've put together and the expertise that you have on your staff. It makes a big difference for all of us in the community to be able to do all of those kind of comprehensive things that we're able to do. We only do that because our partners like MANA Resources, like The Rock, all the different partners, Housing Partnership. It makes a difference to have every piece of those components there to provide that whole supportive system. So thank you for all your work that you do. It's impressive.
You're here. Anybody else on this amazing presentation? We appreciate you, Erin. Well, with that, we'll move on to our executive committee member updates. Anybody have any updates, news from your respective organizations that you want to share with us? Maria?
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Erin, again, for that partnership and all you do. So the housing partnership is always really busy, but I want to, just on the theme of working together, share that our Proposition 123 program that we pulled together so that all of our jurisdictions could opt into Proposition 123, access the funding, including homeless service funding, funding for housing for people with disabilities, senior housing, and so on. We have received a MetroVision Award from the Denver Regional Council of Governments, so that's incredibly exciting to receive recognition for our work, partnering together, better together always. So that's really great, and just wanted to share that here. We have a grand opening, well, I should say it's an open house and community celebration for Unity on Park Street next week on Wednesday. If you're interested in attending and you didn't receive an invitation, just let me know. We'd love to have you there. And there's lots of other stuff going on, but I think those are the highlights I wanted to share with you all. I'm sorry, one more thing. I think last time we met, I had mentioned that we were working on a housing navigator. And so we have officially, thank you, Commissioner, and to everyone who helped get funding approved officially for housing navigator, and that is Erin DeGroff, and she's listening online and available to you all. She's been able to be at a resource fair at the older adults resource fair in Town Hall last night, and just connecting with our partners, getting to know the different services services and becoming more ingrained in the community there. And then also thank you for approval for funding as matching funding for housing needs assessment and action plan strategy sessions for the housing partnership that will be using matching funding to apply for state funds for that information and the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And that award is a big deal. So huge congratulations. I know we're going to be doing more on that. So way to go. Great. Well, with that, any other community updates from anybody? Anybody online? Okay. So with that, we'll move to Dante Young with the Heart Report. Dante?
Right. Good morning, everybody. Hold on, let me put my glasses on real quick. I got a slight astigmatism. All right. So it's funny because I recently, the reason why I'm wearing these glasses, I recently went to the eye doctor and they said I had a slight astigmatism. So what that pretty much means is my eyes are shaped like a football that Tom Brady handled before. Football shape, but slightly deflated. So, like I said, I'm Dante Young. I'm filling in for Tiffany Marcito, the incomparable, amazing Tiffany Marcito. And we're going to go in with the Heart overview for May 2025. In May of 25, Heart received 146 referrals and enrolled 21 new clients into the program. Heart also exited 25 clients with 8% going into permanent support, permanent housing. As far as panhandling goes, 5 were from Douglas County, 3 resided outside of Douglas County, and 5 were not homeless. And at this moment, there are 0 encampments. Next, for business engagements, we have done 19 business engagements, and we completed 19 business engagements, and we completed 19 trespass letters in the month of May. Heart and Community Services leadership began conversations with IT to incorporate text capabilities for our Heart hotline. And we are going to stay in communication until we can figure out the ins and outs of what that might look like for us. Heart also attended the launch of the Learning Initiative for Fighting Homelessness Together Academy, aka the LIFT Academy. This academy is accessible to people through the Transformational Homeless Response Grant, aka the THR grant, and will focus on maximizing program outcomes through programmatic excellence, funding stability, and intentional inputs. Like Maria said earlier, Heart presented at the Douglas County's Housing Partnership Board meeting in May. So, thank you. Woo -woo. Next, so it's just some numbers about the Heart by name list meeting, or just the by name list meeting in general. Total unhoused people is 58. Total number of people sleeping outside, we have 5 adults, 0 families, and 0 veterans. Total unsheltered in vehicles, we have 19 adults, 2 families totaling in 6 people, and 1 veteran. Total people in motels, we have 9 people, 1 family of 4, 1 single person, and 2 households of 2 people. Total people in temporary sheltered in goals, we have 3 families totaling 7 people. Total people in transitional housing, there are 11 people. So that, if we break that down, that's 1 family of 4, 1 family of 2, 1 family of 3, and 2 singles. All right, so next, we're gonna just tell you all about a story that we had recently. As Heart, we recently assisted an elderly gentleman who had been living in and out of hotels for the past 4 years. This gentleman was struggling with like some memory decline, and without access to medical coverage, food assistance, and active social security benefits, he faced significant challenges. However, thanks to the coordinated efforts of our local and regional partners, he was able to secure government benefits and transition into permanent housing at an assisted living facility. Today, he lives in a safe, supportive environment where he receives the care he needs and is building meaningful relationships with his peers. All right, so moving on. So these are the new enrollments that we have. It's a graph. And in May of 24, Heart enrolled 29 clients into the program. In April of 25, Heart enrolled 14. And in May of 25, last month, we enrolled 21 people into the program. And this graph here shows the Heart enrollment trends over a 12-month period. So that's pretty cool. Next, this is a graph showing the households that received one or more service. So in May of 24, Heart provided one or more service to 29 households. In April of 25, Heart provided 48 households with one or more service. And in May of 25, there were 45 households that received one or more services. Next, this is a graph of the number of services Heart provided over a 12-month period. This fabulous pie graph is the May 2025 call types by location. So in total, Heart were referred, we had 148 referrals in May of 25. 34% of those referrals were from Highlands Ranch, 21 were from Parker, 19 were from Castle Rock, 12 were from Lone Tree, 10 were from Castle Pines, and 4% from Inglewood. And last but not least, May 25 exit outcomes. Heart exit 25 clients from the program in May of 2025. 8% were exit to permanent supportive housing. 40% were exit to emergency shelters. 24% to temporary housing. 20% remained homeless, but out of the county. And 8% were exit due to no contact. And with that, that's the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Dante, great presentation. Thank you so much for that. Any questions for the Heart team? Many of whom are in the back too. Thank you all so much for the great work you do. Our heroes, yeah, huge round of applause. Maria.
Thank you. Thank you. I was curious, one, thank you for working on the text option. I think that's really great. And the story that Caroline shared, I think really reinforces that, you know, just texting right from your phone, that would be something. So thank you for that. And then I was curious about the seasonal challenges that might be coming up for folks that the Heart team is encountering with the heat coming, and just curious if there's cooling places or anything like that that we should know about or refer folks to if we come into contact with folks who are experiencing heat challenges and are unhoused.
Yeah. So you can always reach out to us on our Heart hotline, and we will be more than happy to speak to the individual and just figure out where they want to go first and foremost, and then provide them with the resources available in our area that can provide that type of support for them. So if you ever encounter an individual who is looking for some type of shelter that might, you know, help them get out of the heat or whatever element they're trying to get out of, just reach out to us and we can provide you with those resources.
That's great. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Dante. Jen?
Yeah, we wanted to do a little bit of follow-up based on our meeting last month where we heard from Holly, who was with the School of Rock up in Highlands Ranch, that they were having some concerns up there and some neat, kind of a reach out request from a business for some assistance. So I know that Hart and the Sheriff's Office has been very involved in that effort since we've, been contacted by Holly. And I wanted to give the Sheriff's Office an opportunity to kind of give an update of what that looks like. So, Chief, do you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, I think Adam's going to do that. I would just say, we really appreciated the comment. It was an opportunity, and I went back to Commander Mormon and asked him to make contact with the School of Rock and just make sure that we were understanding what their needs were, what it is that they were seeing, and addressing those. And Commander Mormon can let us know what he found out.
Yeah, so after that. Am I there? Okay, there we go. So after that last meeting, we did some statistical digging over the last couple of years just to look at calls for service, how many we had, what the general overlay was as far as what types of call for service. So just to give a reference, over the last couple of years, we've had roughly 90 calls for service. Not specifically at the School of Rock, but School of Rock, Safeway, essentially everything incorporated within that parking area. Roughly 80% of those calls for service were law enforcement initiated. Were not called in by a business owner, by the public, and the vast majority of those were suspicious circumstances, things like that, unwanted subjects. The things that we are doing in relation specifically to the School of Rock with the issue that we are looking at is we got with our Hart team and our patrol team right away to start adding increased patrols between both of our services, from patrol and from our Hart team. And then looking at trespass letters for specifically that area. Now there is a little bit of some hurdles with that because School of Rock, that property is managed by a property management company that oversees all of those, but the property is owned by the Safeway Corporation there. So it's jumping through some hurdles, trying to get in contact with the right people, but that is still ongoing. I think we've made some pretty good strides on that front. The other thing we're doing is speaking with the RTD leadership to see what we can do about, as was discussed earlier, one of the big issues that's bringing this about is we're the end of the line for RTD. For the buses, they're dropped off there, as well as just a block away on the other side of the substation. So we're getting individuals that are coming down from the northern areas of the metro area, getting pushed off at the end of the line if they don't have anywhere else to go or any additional funds, things like that. So we're working, trying to build some partnership with RTD to figure out ways we can get them back up to where they came from, additional housing opportunities, stuff like that. So they're not just getting booted off at the end of the line where they don't have any other resources or any other options. I do think that talking about the stickers and the stuff that you were talking about, it would be a good thing to maybe look at putting those on the bus stops and RTD drop areas. So when people are getting dropped off or whether they're getting pushed out or getting off on their own, that would be a good place to put those so they have some information right when they get off to know, hey, if I don't have anywhere to go, any resources, here's something right here a number that I can call to maybe get some assistance. Other than that, I am happy to say we haven't had a single call for service at the School of Rock since that last meeting. So the increased patrols are obviously working. Now that could be that we just haven't received a call. Things have kind of worked their way out before we get called to us, but how it's been going is definitely a positive uptick in the direction we want to go. So.
Well, Commander in Chief, thank you so much for that. And I'm terribly biased, but I don't think there's any better sheriff's office than the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. And the fact that you tackled that so quickly after our last meeting, I think is really meaningful to our community. This isn't just an isolated example. You do this for everybody, all the businesses, all the citizens, all the time. So one great example of things going really well in our county. I'll look forward to probably not hearing back from this individual. So it sounds like that may have been resolved. So great job with that. Jen?
Yeah, and I think that if Tiffany were here, she's on a well-deserved vacation, but if she were here, she would also kind of expand a little bit about the work that Hart has done in collaboration with the sheriff's office along these lines. So Rand, do you want to give a quick update on this? I know that Tiffany had connected with Holly just recently.
Yeah, in fact, Tiffany did send a report to me just before taking off on her vacation. Just said she checked in with them last week, spoke with one of the co-owners, Andy. Very pleased that there's been, quote, significantly less to almost no issues since the last meeting. Very appreciative of the work of the sheriff and the extra patrols. Do recognize that that has made an increased effort. And also made reference that the owners both have Sergeant Baca numbers, phone number, and Tiffany's cell phone number. So if they do have any ongoing concerns, a direct line to response from both of our agencies. And so also want to just take a second to say thank you to the sheriff. Also, I know a couple of our navigators have been highly involved in trying to work through this process of getting a hold of the folks at Safeway. That appears to be the primary point of focus and emphasis now is trying to secure that. So I know Greg's been out there a couple of times, as well as I know the deputies that are with him have been working on that. I think Deputy Hassman has been working on that as well. So very appreciative of that. That appears to be the next step, and we'll continue to press on to try and obtain that no trespass letter. So thank you, gentlemen. A lot of hard work by the team. So
Good job.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there aren't any other questions on that topic, we also wanted to follow up on the idea of having a text option connected to the Heartline. And we have spoken with IT, and Sean Dodera is here to talk to us a little bit about what those options could look like. And we appreciate all your help and cooperation in everything we've honestly done with IT. A lot of the reporting that we initially did for Hart really came out of the help that we got from IT. So just a big thank you to you all for that. So I'll turn it over to Sean.
Well, thank you for that. Just wanted to add on to Dante's update just a little bit. We did meet in the month of May, gathered all of the technical requirements. What really stood out is you guys are mobile, and you need to be able to work collaboratively amongst the team out in the field. So we're currently working with several different county vendors to evaluate different technical options. First and foremost, as we look at these kinds of solutions, we try to reuse technology that we may already have in the county. At this time, we've kind of exhausted those options. You guys are a unique use case, so we're now branching out with other vendors and trying to really understand what's on the market and what we can bring to the table. We expect by the next homeless initiative meeting that we would have several options to present and a recommendation out of IT for the option that we think would meet your guys' needs and be the easiest to work with. So, and then from that point, once we can make a decision, we'll bring a timeline for implementation. Any questions?
That's great. My immediate question is always going to be timeline. We don't wait to do great. How quickly can we get this launched?
Well, again, that really depends on the technology we choose. Our hope and what we're really focusing on are what we would call turnkey solutions in the cloud. So, right, very short spin up times. Really, we're going to be working to find a solution that would meet a quick timeline. And that's what, we talked with Rand quite a bit about, right, your guys' timeline needs and what your guys are looking for. And so we're going to try to meet that as to the best of our ability. I don't want to commit to anything without having a little more information at this time.
What kind of information do you need?
We have the requirements at this point. We're just trying to get with our vendors so that we can make sure the solutions that we are examining would meet those needs. The last thing we want to do is bring something to the table too quickly and then find out that it doesn't work and then having to go back to the drawing board. So we want to just really examine those requirements that we've got gathered and make sure that we get a solution that meets the needs of the team.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we often build the plane as it's taking off here, as we know, and we don't, to continue the cliches, we don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. So thank you for that tremendous work. The sooner we can bring that, I think you have unanimous support from all of us and our community to get this going. So this will be a big push, I think, through the next month or so, but thank you so much for that. Any other questions on the texting? I think we wthey talking about, for those who missed it last time, it was just, what does the average citizen want to be able to do? And a lot of people don't want to make a call anymore. They don't want to pick up the phone, but text is convenient. I think we all do that. It's easy. You see somebody that might be in a tough situation, just text the heart team, and that seems like it could be that could be a catalyst for strong launching this into the rest of this year. So we really appreciate IT. This will be a big part of our work this year. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment in the room or online with regard to anything that we heard today?
Not seeing anything. They did ask. I'm not seeing anything.
Nothing online either. Okay. Well, perfect. So I think we're ending a little bit early. I just wanted to thank everybody for the tremendous work. We got a couple of big projects this year, obviously with communications, the businesses, the communication launch and texting, but great work. Again, always really appreciate our heart team. Thank you and have a good rest of your day.